Scott Cepicky's with us, Representative Cepicky. Maybe not for long. You know, I yell at politicians nowadays.
Please. I'll be really cupcake for you.
How's it going?
Good. Try throwing me out, by the way. Good luck.
I haven't thrown anybody out.
You're going to need Mandis.
In 6 days.
I haven't thrown. I didn't even throw her out.
I know.
I simply.
You know, in the movie with Sylvester Stallone, Demolition Man, when he's kind of off color with Sandra Bullock, and she stomps her foot and points to the door. That was you on Friday.
No.
You stomped your foot and pointed to the door.
Let me correct the record from Friday. Senator Heidi Campbell asked to be on the show. She wanted to offer a defense of public schools or an attack on the school choice legislation that she's not read yet. And I accused her of being a hypocrite and a liar. I called her. I did it to her face.
You did?
And she said, I will not sit here and be called a liar. And I said, well, you can leave. And she said, what? And I said, as a matter of fact, I mean, I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable, but I'm not going to go back on my language because I think it was true.
You owe me a new radio, by the way.
Were you yelling at your radio?
I was throwing it at the time when she was talking.
Oh, wait. So you don't think that this school scholarship fund, as conceptualized by lawmakers in the state of Tennessee, is going to cost the state $800 million, Scott, like Heidi was suggesting last week?
No, it will not. No, it will not.
It's not a scam?
It's not a scam.
Apparently it's not a scam, according to Cepicky. So let's back up and ask, where are we in the progression of... Obviously, the governor talked about it the other night during the State of the State address. You were there. You've been working on it. You're a part of, is it fair to call you a part of that kind of the working group? The team that's working on this. Tell us where we are on this.
So I will tell you this, first of all. When we craft and finally get this legislation before the public so you and others can look at it, I think you will see a piece of legislation that will become the model across the country on how we improve our public schools to the nth degree, and then have an off-ramp for those parents that feel like their needs are still not being met, that want an alternative. I think the people of Tennessee will be extremely proud of the legislation that we're going to pass on education freedom. Freedom for all of our students, right? Freedom for our teachers to be able to do what they were paid to do when we went to school, to teach in the classroom. And we're pretty close. We're kind of writing legislation right now. I know what happened in the Senate, and it was just a hiccup. That was an old piece of legislation, kind of from the 90,000-foot view of, hey, here's a general idea we're working on, and then we got to get with the teams over in the General Assembly and try to hang the meat on this bones. And so we're in that process right now. I would say, if not by next week, Matt, probably the week after that, we will have the language that's going to be dropped in the House. I don't speak for the Senate. Jack Johnson, whoever come over, can talk about their bill. But I think the bills will be different, and we will run our bills, and then we'll see if they have to go to committee.
Senator Campbell, who accused me of attacking public schools and attacking teachers' unions, she actually said that I called teachers' unions evil, which was a lie. She completely misrepresents my position on it, and I think Democrats are intentionally misrepresenting the Republican Party's position on this issue. Mm-hmm. And you accurately described it. The idea is to offer parents opportunities to put tools in their toolbox. So if and when it is necessary for them to make different decisions regarding their child's education, they have the ability to do that. Mm-hmm. But the entire point of the legislation is to incentivize our public school systems and to give them the tools necessary where parents won't have to do that. They won't consider doing that, right, because their school that they're zoned for is up to snuff. It's up to par. It's making the grade for their family and their kids. That's right.
That's it. That is the legislation that we are working on crafting. We have seen other states that have made mistakes. We are not going to make those same mistakes. We are going to craft a bill that enables these public school classrooms to be what you and I and others in Tennessee, what we envision, right? Where learning is taking place, and the amount of testing to verify that maybe gets lessened, so that we're focusing more in the classroom on the day-to-day operations of learning, so we can get our students to get depth, knowledge, and understanding, not just be able to say what's 2 + 2 is, well, what are the other ways you can get to 4, right? 2 + 2 is 4. Well, give me another way. And that's where the depth, knowledge, and understanding comes for them, that they never forget what they learn. And that's how we're going to transform education, Matt. And once we do that in K through 12, then our focus will shift to higher ed.
So when we see this drop, she talked about, I don't know where she pulls this $800 million figure from, but in terms specifically of the possibility of a scholarship that would offer, I look at it as leveling the playing field to a certain degree, in that parents that want different educational opportunities for their children should not be prevented from seeking those out because of financial need. And this kind of tries to repair some of that. What do you expect the price tag, roughly speaking, will be? I don't suggest it'll be anywhere near $800 million. And where does that money come from?
So there's the part of the 20,000 scholarships, right? 20,000 times $7,000 is $140 million. Put some administrative costs in there. Let's just say $150 million. Right?
Okay.
So if that is all you're looking at, the price tag is $150 million. That's what it is. What we're looking at doing that is going to possibly cost some more monies, but as you'll see, is also saving some money that we're spending in education, allowing us to reallocate it maybe to better teacher salaries or teachers' assistants in K through 3. My gut feeling is the total might be, I don't know, 300, 400 million total investment in this bill. And where's the money coming from? We just went through the state of the state. I got my budget book. Since I've been up in the General Assembly, we have had roughly a $3.5 to $4 billion surplus every year. The only difference this year, Matt, is we don't have the $3 to $4 billion surplus. We are still able to fund everything we did last year. We have the money to do this. The governor will be very savvy with his finance people like Speaker Sexton and Lieutenant Governor McNally, and we will find this money through savings and also through reallocation, and we will be able to pay for this ongoing. And I think I just wish I could hit the time button here and speed up 2 weeks, that I could be sitting here going through you with the bill. And I promise you, when we drop this bill, I'm sure Speaker Sexton's probably going to want to come over and talk to you about it first. I'm sure he will. And I can come in behind and just kind of fill in the details, whatever's missing.
What do you make of, and how do you respond to, it seems, the overarching allegations by Democrats, by those who are supportive of status quo with regard to public education? They seem to argue that it will be public money going to private schools, that it will be the wealthy somehow benefiting the wealthy, and they're going to leave the poor people behind. I'm just trying to work through some of these overarching allegations against those that are constructing the bill, and what your response would be to some of those. Let's start with this. These are just wealthy people wanting to use public money to send their kids to private school.
That was the mistake that I believe that Arizona made. They just opened it up wide right away. And the object of this legislation, Matt, is to give opportunities for kids that are in troubled schools. Give those families the opportunity who want a better outcome for their kids. Give them that opportunity. So it's shifting kids from a bad environment to a good environment. So what you do is you just make it off of needs, right? You make the whole thing tiered off of needs base where everybody can apply for it. We have 20,000 scholarships, right? But we only have so much capacity. So we could have 80,000 people apply for this map, but we only have capacity for how many kids going into private schools. One of the big pushbacks we're getting right now, and in the House bill, I can feel very confident in telling you this, we've received letters from homeschool associations saying the magic words, leave us alone. So in the House bill, you'll probably see where we will write the homeschoolers out because they don't want to take part. They're scared to death of the government sticking their nose in their business.
Well, I mean, it makes sense to me because when you're homeschooling, I'm certain that there is money. I mean, there's money involved in homeschooling your children. But there's a gray area about when a collection of homeschool students becomes almost a private school. And I would think that you would have to, in the legislation, distinguish between the two. And in doing so, you're going to put some floor-based regulations on who is eligible and who's not. Now, there are some that are going to criticize that. And you're leading right to where my next question was going, and that is, what assurances do you have of people who are involved in private education and you kind of just answered the homeschool piece, but that this will not lead to more government control over the private educational experience.
Yeah, I think that as a return on our investment in education, right? If we have let's say hypothetically, we have Matt Murphy who's in a public school and the parents want to send him to MBA, right? And MBA says, yes, we will take Matt Murphy to come over here and he could be one of our students. For our return on investment, I think what you'll probably see is some kind of language that says, okay, MBA, if you take Matt Murphy coming from a public school, you keep your same curriculum, your textbooks, the way you operate, but do me a favor, just send me how Matt's doing in school so I can make sure he's on an upward trajectory. That I can verify that, hey, Matt's in a better spot and he's doing a lot better.
And the entire legislation is working.
That's it. So we know, and then have the Department of Education put that information together on us, and we can say, hey, here's where the kids started in public school from last year. Here's where their grades are. Now, I fully expect that when Matt goes from a failing public school to a high-performing private school,
my grades are going down.
That first year is going to be pretty tough on you.
Yeah.
What we're looking for is, do we get that bounce in year 2, right? Oh, look, he's starting to pick back to where he was. Year 3, now he's starting to excel, right? This is anybody who comes on the air or talks about, hey, look at the scores of the voucher bill, the kids are worse in year 1, they're being disingenuous with you. Because if they came from a failing public school doing terrible and they went to a private school and they were getting straight A's, my first phone call would be to the private school going, what are you doing over there?
Right.
Well, what's going on?
Right.
And so I think we can get the accountability we all want as taxpayers, because we're talking, right, $150 million. We want a return on our investment. And I will support no legislation that tells private schools how to educate, but I will support legislation that gives public schools more of the freedom and autonomy that the private schools have to turn them loose in the classroom.
So how do you accomplish that? How do you eliminate some of the bureaucratic nonsense that exists in our public education system?
You are very good at getting this bill out of me, aren't you?
Well, I'm just. You asked. I'm just asking the natural. I'm asking the natural question.
Is this where I get thrown out?
Well, no. You said, and I like the way you're thinking. It's not a matter of putting the more burden on the private sector. It's eliminating some of the burden at the local level on the public sector and letting good teachers and good principals teach and administer the teaching of students. So how do we do that?
So you and we've had a relationship for a while now.
Yeah.
In the public schools, one of the complaints we get is too much testing. So if I reduce the amount of testing, I free up time, right? The other complaint we get is we're doing so many different evaluations on these kids, repetitive evaluations over and over and over, which takes away time to teach, right? And then we do things in the classroom for reporting data for the teacher's licensure, right? Or for evaluations of how a teacher's doing in a classroom. Everything that we're talking about right there, if we can reduce those, we create time in the classroom for the teacher to teach, right? If you look at the private schools, one of the things, if you go to a private school, and I've been all over the state, the one thing the private school teachers are doing most of the day, Matt, is teaching. If you sit there in front of kids and you ask, we can put 100 teachers in front of this microphone. If you tell them, if I give you more time in the classroom to teach the kids, will you get better results? And I'll bet you 99.9 say yes.
Does and I might be asking questions that you can't answer yet, and if you can't answer them, that's fine. I'll start screaming at you and you'll leave. So, with regard to private schools, this doesn't change the admissions process in private school in any way.
Nope. No.
And it's my understanding the idea is the scholarship money goes to the parent. It doesn't go to the school. In other words, that would be quagging up. Then the school has to decide whether they take the money or don't take the money or whatever. The money goes. The idea is the money's going to the parent.
That'd be a voucher. There's a scholarship.
What's right?
Scholarship.
Tell me what the difference is.
Scholarship will probably go to the school.
Can the private schools then decline that? Can they decline to participate?
Yes, because they're private schools.
Okay, so the private schools say we're not taking the government scholarship.
Yeah, because I can tell you right now.
That's fine. It's fair.
And the argument is, I can tell you right now that I'm not going to do anything to get into the private school, right? But in reality, I'm not going to be doing this job my whole life. So I can't tie the hands of future General Assemblies. That's where we have to have that old thing of buyer beware. Be careful, right?
I think that opens up the free market even further, and it gives the private schools the ability. If the private school wants to be the private school that's going to turn down a student because $7,000 of that dollars comes from a scholarship, then they get to do that, and whatever comes after that comes after that.
And that's the issue that and looking at the private schools along our state. The one thing we're going to have to get to make this program very successful is we have to increase capacity in our private schools. So I hope they're listening to your show right now. The Catholic diocese have lots of money to invest in Tennessee to build those K through 12 schools across our state to increase our capacity. Honestly, I don't think we have the capacity for 20,000 students to be added in private schools across the state.
Well, it feels like you're trying to do, and I'm not trying to be a Pollyanna here, the devil's in the bill, but it feels like you're trying to do two things simultaneously. You're trying to offer parents the best opportunities that you possibly can for the future education of their children. At the same time, you want to make public school such a honeypot that they don't want to go anywhere else. Yeah. And that's great.
Because the same educational opportunities are balanced in each place.
Will you answer a couple of listener questions on this?
Sure.
All right, so we'll get to those in just a moment. Jamie, hang in there. Mickey, you too. If you have a question for Scott, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I read this bill. I didn't see any of this stuff in there.
How much you pay him?
Sorry, that's a callback.
Ouch. You need to go to commercial
Heidi,
on that one.
Yeah, well, Heidi was, I don't know if she, knew that I know what a placeholder is, but, apparently she was pretending that she did not.
Can I say one thing about Heidi?
Sure.
She's a nice lady.
Yes, she is.
She's a sweet woman. She has a big heart. But come on. You can't come in here and say that stuff when she knows she hasn't seen the bill because
she knows she hasn't read the bill.
Because I know there's a team in the Senate working on a bill too.
And that's what annoyed me about Heidi. And for those who haven't heard it, go listen to the interview. Yes, I was mean to her toward the end because not only does she know that she hasn't read it, she knows that I know that she hasn't read it, yet she sits here on the radio and says that she has.
Correct.
Which is ludicrous. So it's 23 after the hour. We'll be back with your calls and your thoughts on the scholarship fund in a moment with Representative Scott Cepicky. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Representative Scott Cepicky in with us. He's our go-to guy on the issue of education in the General Assembly, and he's a fountain of knowledge, much of which he can relate to you, some of which he cannot because the bill has yet to drop. But it's a fair character.
Say that again. The bill what?
Has yet to drop.
Thank you very much.
Right. So
there's no language
and I want to make sure that people understand what that means because some were a little confused. Because I was challenging Heidi. I've read the bill. I said, no, you haven't. Well, yes, I have. It's there is a deadline by which bills have to be filed in the General Assembly.
That's correct. And it's passed.
And it has passed. This bill has its, quote, in place in terms of there's a placeholder bill sitting there, right?
There's a bill that says Title 49 education. And that's it.
Right.
So we will plug everything into that.
So the idea is if you're not quite ready with all of the details that goes into a complex piece of legislation like this, you make sure you get it pre-filed, get it in there, and then you can add the all the spice and the salt and the pepper and all that to the recipe that you want and let it simmer for a little bit.
Right.
And then let the General Assembly debate it.
That's the job.
As is the process.
Yep.
Jamie is in Leaper's Fork with a thought for Representative Scott Cepicky. Hello, Jamie. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for calling in.
Well, my question, I wanted to make sure I understood you right, Mr. Cepicky. You said that the homeschoolers are concerned about government intervention, so they won't be included in the bill. Is that what you said?
We have a letter from the Homeschool Association that we just received today. And we asked them, what is your position on this? What do you think? Do you want to be included in this language, or do you think it'd be better to be excluded? And we have a letter asking us to write homeschoolers out of this legislation.
So are we to believe then there's probably going to be a lot of government intervention because of that?
No, I think what it is like I told Matt, is I can't guarantee what future legislators or General Assemblies are going to do. And I think homeschoolers have always been very cautious and leery of anything that smells like government. And so I think what they've done is they've weighed the possibility of, is it worth the $7,000 to possibly have the strings attached to it?
Whether or not you guys do the strings or not, they're worried about future strings.
Or do we just say, you know what, we are fine where we are, leave us alone?
Yeah, okay. And that was from HSLDA, or that's from the Middle Tennessee Association?
What was the first one you said, HSLDA?
HSLDA.
I think that's where it was from, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then when is everything going to be out on the table for us to see?
Well, we're in the process of writing it, and when you're talking a bill that's probably could be approaching $500 million, we take our time to make sure it's right. I would say a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks tops.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hey, Jamie, he didn't really answer that question. Start yelling at him and tell him to leave. I'm just kidding. That's it, Jamie.
And then I'm going to hang up.
Very good. Thanks, Jamie, for the call. The concerns from homeschool parents are not, it's not anything specific within the legislation. It's just they're very leery of the possibility of being attached to the government system.
Yeah.
Is that the idea?
They want to make sure that they have the freedom and autonomy to choose the curriculum, the textbooks, things, how they're educating their kids. Most homeschoolers will take some type of nationally normed test, like an ACT, or if you're in grades 3 through 8, you'll take like the old Iowa test. Well, it's not old; it's still used. A nationally normed test to show that they're on track for improvement every year. The homeschoolers don't want us dictating what their curriculum is going to be, what textbooks they have to use, what they have to teach, how they have to teach it, reporting. It's just they're a homeschooler.
Is the state dictating that to private schools?
No.
Okay.
There's certain things in code right now.
It's a little bit different.
Yeah, it's a little bit different.
So it feels like homeschoolers don't necessarily want to be treated like private schools with regard to the relationship with the state.
Right. Which is shallow to begin with. They just want to make sure that we don't reach into their life and start telling them how to.
That makes sense.
Because that's why they're homeschoolers.
That's right.
Because if they were okay with the government education, where would they be? They'd be in public schools.
Mickey, we'll get to you in just a moment. 132 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm going to lock the door and make sure Scott Cepicky doesn't leave, because I have a couple of other questions unrelated to education, to include this Jody Barrett bill. Have you seen this bill, the blocking the highway thing? I bet.
Lock them up.
Yeah, I bet you're
lock them up.
Yeah, no.
Or ship them to Arkansas.
Give them hot chocolate.
We'll be back in a minute. By the way, it's the Matt Murphy Show, Super Talk 99.7 WTN, 137, almost 138.
You don't support it?
I don't know that I support anything that's going on.
Well, first off, I'd like to apologize to Representative Cepicky for forgetting to do it off the top of the interview. And I would also like to say this.
It's Friday Eve all day long on the Mac Murphy Show.
It's even worse with the Superman music in the background.
Coup d'etat, you with me?
Sure, I'm in.
You're out of here, Murphy. I'm taking over.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I'm out. I'll take off.
I can close out another hour and a half.
I don't know. When did we vote? I mean, did we vote on his music, or was there a discussion about it?
It's the aura.
You don't.
We had a very long discussion. Unfortunately, you weren't invited.
If we're going down the superhero road, I can think of a lot of super. You remember
why am I using it?
The Fantastic Four? The thing from Fantastic Four?
Why am I using Superman?
I don't know.
Because it was his walk-up music when he played for the Sounds.
Well, I think nowadays he's more Incredible Hulk.
Stop being a hater.
Seriously.
Face.
Man comes in every week, gives us his time.
My boys are cringing right now. Because my Riz is awesome, right?
Listen to this.
I'm just throwing them all out there. I'll get one of them right eventually.
You're so you're based.
I'm hip, man.
Hip. If you say you're hip, you're not hip.
Groovy. That's my wife telling me to stop talking.
Yes, you should. You should probably listen to Mickey right now out of Watertown. Mickey's got a question or a thought on school choice. Hey, Mickey, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great, Mickey. What's on your mind?
Okay. On the private school issue, as far as the state paying money, I think they ought to, if you're going to take a student that went to public school and put them in private school, they should be tested before they are allowed in. And the reason I'm saying this, I went to David Lipscomb. I also went to Ezel Harding. Private schools' curriculum is more intense than what is in the public school. So if you take a child that's in, say, 4th or 5th grade now and put them into a private school, I don't believe they will make it. Also, too, I believe the parents has to push education on the child and not allow the school to be the only responsible person to teach that child.
Well, I've been saying for a long time, Mickey, and a lot longer than I've been in Tennessee, that until we get more parents involved in the education of their kids, all of this is just spinning our wheels. And I do believe that the basic parameters, and thank you for your call, Mickey, I believe the basic parameters as presented by Scott Cepicky and others regarding this bill will do that. If you give more tools to the toolbox, then parents are more apt to go to the toolbox and use those tools to better the educational needs of their children.
And that is correct. And if a student does go to a private school, just tell us how they're doing so we can make sure the whole project is working.
By the way, Bell, I take back everything I just said about the walk-up music, and here's why. A listener on the super text line reminded me that we get to call him Super Picky, which I think fits.
Scott, it's amazing the simple little things
that
get him to do a 180 on something.
It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Super Picky.
Flip-flop, Murphy.
That's right. I'm flopping on the issue. This a serious question, and this is a good one. This one comes up from time to time. How did the $7,000 figure come up? Now, I'm not holding you down on it, but that's the figure that we hear. Mm-hmm. A lot of parents say, "Well, my private school costs more than that." Blah 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 blah. It's my understanding that the education of a child in the state of Tennessee is roughly $13,000, something along those lines. And my understanding of it's the idea is that it is basically the state's portion of that.
So under the old the old ESA bill that this will be replacing, the stipend was a little bit more. We came up with the new TISA funding formula for the public schools. The base is about $6,500, and so they were trying to figure out some kind of meeting in the middle. And I believe the governor's staff has done some data and research with FNA and through different parts of the budget process. They've come up with $7,000 to be a fair representation of what it would kind of equate out for a student to leave. Now, remember, if they leave with the $7,000, but under the new TISA funding program, that student may be getting $12,000 to $13,000 for that public school to help them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you do it through a scholarship, some of the objections that some of the members have about illegals being able to take advantage of the scholarship, we believe we can write legislation because the public education is still available for, and you know about federal law, if they show up to school, I have to educate them, that we could prohibit people who are not U.S. citizens and residents of Tennessee from being prohibited from taking advantage of the scholarship.
I want to give you an opportunity to clarify this because we had one super texter, 9250, who says, holy cow, kids do get tested when they go to private schools, homeschooled, or away from public. Those kids can make it. How dare he say that? I don't think that's what you were saying.
I don't know what you mean.
I think this was in reference to the feeling on the part of teachers that you've talked to that there's over-testing in the public education arena. No one is suggesting there's not testing in private education. Of course there is.
No, it's the amount of testing. I'll give you, for instance, I just got a email this week from a teacher in 8th grade in a public school, and their students are taking 15 tests this year. My students and other students in private schools, I think they take 4. So if you're testing a student 15 times, right, that's pulling so much class time away from those teachers for education. What kind of results are we trying to get here? We're over-testing in our public schools. And I think if we can reduce the amount of testing in our public schools to mirror more of what we see in the homeschool atmosphere or the private school atmosphere, I think now we start to give our public school teachers what they've asked for from us and listen to. Give me more time in the day to teach my kids.
So if we believe that, I mean, per the language that you've used today, that the possibility exists when we see this bill, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I don't want to say, Cepicky said the bill would say this, because that's not what you're saying. You're just throwing some things out there. That homeschoolers will be just kind of left alone. They have asked that they be left alone.
At their request.
We're good over here. Then that begs the question, how do you determine what is and is not a private school in terms of eligibility for the scholarships?
And one of the things that we saw is to prevent these Matt Murphy School of Education from popping up, right? You've
learned about my third-party venture.
And Mac Murray's.
It's called the Quad M's, Mac and Matt, Murphy and Maury.
Yeah, Maury's is Cougar High, so we're going to stay away from that. But
love it. No, it's just not called Cougar High. It's called Maury High. The Cougars are the mascot.
Yeah,
come on, Cepicky.
Whatever. His reputation is well known on Broadway. We'll leave it at that. But where was I with this?
We were talking about private admission. I mean, rather, scholarship eligibility for private.
Yeah, and so some states have made the mistake of allowing all these pop-ups to happen all over the place. The accreditation process to be an accredited institution takes 3 years in the state of Tennessee. So there'll probably be something in there about, hey, you're going to have to exist or be in existence for 3 years to receive your accreditation so that we know you're a bona fide school. You have the data to show that you are educating your kids, and then we can start to then get you qualified for the scholarship.
Yeah, so that's a balance. You don't want to discourage more private schools from coming about as a result of the legislation. At the same time, you don't want these phony baloney schools trying to take advantage of the scholarships, pop up and then disappear.
Right.
So they have to demonstrate themselves, their worthiness.
That's correct.
For a number of years. Let's talk to Mark in McMinnville with a question for Scott Cepicky. You're on the Murphy Show, Mark. How are you?
I'm all right, y'all.
Doing well. What's on your mind?
So I just came into this discussion about 15 minutes ago when I got off on lunch break, but do I understand that homeschoolers are being excluded from this?
At their request, yes.
At their request.
Well, I happen to be a homeschooler, and I know several homeschooling families, and I mean, that wouldn't be our request. I mean, we pay thousands of dollars in taxes that go to the public schools, and then we pay thousands of dollars more for curriculum, and I don't understand why we can't be included in that at all. I mean, it costs a lot of money to buy curriculum, and we do it even if we can't hardly afford it because we want our kids to have a better education. And, we pay, but we're still paying taxes for people for the public school services that we're not even using.
Mark, I understand I understand the frustration. Are you a part of any broader homeschool organization?
Well, legally or whatever, we have to be in like an umbrella school, so we're like under a school technically that's overseeing us as homeschoolers, and they do like the testing and stuff, but that's it.
Does your umbrella school belong to a statewide organization that they all talk to your umbrella school talks to other umbrella schools across the state?
That would be a question for my wife. I don't know that.
If you could find that out, if the answer probably is yes. And if the answer is yes, we specifically, because it's hard for us to go to every homeschooler across the state and ask their opinions, so we go to a organization that represents thousands and thousands of homeschoolers, and we ask them to put it out to their umbrellas and their members, hey, with the potential pitfalls of government intervention, do you want it to stay in the bill, or are you asking us to write you out? And like I said, we received a letter from a statewide organization of homeschoolers asking us to write them out of the bill.
I understand that. Let me ask you this: what would I don't see the pitfall. I mean, if there's already testing requirements in place and the umbrella school requirements, so I don't understand that. I don't understand why returning some of our money to us that right now we're spending in vain for public schools that we're not using. Why would that need to come with more red tape or more government requirements?
Well, the government's going to want to know that their money's well spent, and I'm just answering the question.
We already have the testing requirements, so they can still tell that the money's being spent properly. That we're still doing the job of the education on our end.
Let me ask you an easy question here. Do you want the government telling you what to teach your kids?
No.
There's your answer. Because I can't guarantee that. I can guarantee I won't do it. But 10 years from now, I can't guarantee that future legislation, once you start taking this money, they're not going to come in and retroactively hit you with saying, "Hey, unless you give."
Theoretically, at some point, if some dumbass, I apologize, if some less than brilliant person legislature decides to make regulations that would go along with the money, then at that point we should be able to opt out, right?
Well, you can, but you may have already accepted state money. And so I think what this homeschool organization, the young lady said what it was. I can't remember what it was, but I'm pretty sure it was the one that sent us the letter today. I think what they've looked at is the benefits versus the risk. And I think they just feel the risk is too great to affect what homeschoolers want. You want your autonomy and freedom to educate your kids, to get them the education that you believe is best for them, without someone up in Nashville or the Department of Education telling you how to do it.
Well, and here's what I would encourage you to do, Mark. Once the legislation comes out, once we get a read on it, once we know with finality what it does and does not include, if this displeases you, and then I would encourage you to hit up your individual rep or call Cepicky back and talk to him on the air. But hit up your rep and say, "Hey, wait a minute. I would like to see, I'm a homeschooler. I'd like to see homeschoolers included in this. And if enough homeschoolers around the state do that, then I'm certain that there will be a consideration for your inclusion."
Let me just finish up real quick on this topic. We had a meeting yesterday with an umbrella school group. And it's just a local umbrella school group, and they made it perfectly clear to me, stay out of our business. We said, okay.
Mark, thank you.
My question. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, and I appreciate the call. Cepicky, I always appreciate you, believe it or not, despite what some might think. A lot of folks are reacting to your Cougar High suggestion. They love it. No, they love it. They're all in. Everybody's all in on Cougar High.
Yeah, it's right next to Tootsie's.
151 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. There's Representative Scott Cepicky. Leave it on a high note. We'll be back in a moment.